All right, fellas, let's crack into the game lines here for the beginning of week 12. We're going to start on Thanksgiving Day. Let's talk the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions. As we sit right now, Houston Texans are 3-point favorites over the Detroit Lions. 51 is your total over at DraftKings. You can find a 2.5 over at FanDuel. It's an expensive 2.5 if you want to take the Texans at 2.5, but minus 118, 51.5 actually over there on the total. And then at BetMGM, if you want to bet this game, it is at 2.5. Again, an expensive 2.5 on the Texans, 51.5 there. Brad, I'll start with you. We are looking at a Lions team that just got shut out and embarrassed. I imagine that was pretty much the nail in the coffin for Matt Patricia. I assume he will be fired as soon as the season is over. Matthew Stafford, they say, is playing with some sort of injury with his throwing hand on his thumbs. There's all kinds of problems. No Galladay, DeAndre Swift. There's all kinds of problems going on with the Lions. And then the Texans come and as 2-point dogs, beat the Patriots outright last week and looked at least a little bit like the Texans team that maybe we thought they could be throughout the course of this season.
Yeah, so to start with, I would say I made this game Texans -3 with no adjustments whatsoever. But then we spoke about this last week before the Carolina game that Stafford had injured. He'd torn the ligament in his thumb. The literal throwing hand, and he might not be able to grip and might not be able to throw with accuracy. Well, then they go out against a terrible Panthers defense. They had a 29% success rate. Obviously shut out for the first time in Stafford's career. He lost 10 expected points on his dropbacks. That's truly awful. They had 180 total yards and they got 40% of that in the fourth quarter. And then they come out after the game and Stafford goes, "Oh, my thumb had nothing to do with it." Which is it's a lie, isn't it? Like the worst ever performance in like a 10-year career against an awful defense, and he goes, "Oh, nothing to do with it." So I don't believe him. And they're turning around with a 3 days rest here. You've got to wonder just about the motivation of that team. Like at this point, they're going, our quarterback can't throw. Our coach is a moron. Like I do wonder. I rarely talk about motivation because I do believe they're professional athletes, but if any team is going to be flat, it's going to be the Lions here, and the quarterback can't throw the ball. So just quick injury update. Looks like Galladay he would have been limited at practice yesterday if they practiced, so he could be back, which we do think is important generally. Swift wouldn't have practiced, so he might be out again, and we could get more Adrian Peterson, so that favours us. And then just on the Texans, it's very interesting. They've been getting more and more pass heavy throughout the season, especially after Bill O'Brien's gone. So the Houston Texans have played 307 regular season games in their history, and they've never passed more frequently on early downs than they did on Sunday. That was a stat from Mike Sando, which I thought was interesting. And we just spoke about those 3 MVP candidates, and Deshaun Watson is graded by PFF only behind those 3 this year. So 4th best graded quarterback in the NFL. So I really think that Houston -3 is, or -2.5 if you can get it, is a very good bet.
Yeah. So Brett, I would pay for the expensive 2.5. We know how important 3 is, and it keeps rearing its ugly head. And the thing is you're could you see the Texans even kind of sputtering along in this and then still winning by a field goal against this really, at the end of the day, just completely worthless Lions team over the last couple of weeks? To me, I can see them not even putting forth their best effort and still winning this by a field goal. I'd hate to have to push if that were to be the case. This Houston offense is still 6.1 yards per play compared to Detroit, which is coming in 5.5 yards per play. And we do see what we've seen over the last couple of weeks as Houston take to the air, as Brad mentioned, a little bit more kind of just doing what they do best. And if you look at this Lions defense, no pass rush to speak of, 21st overall by Pro Football Focus. Their rush defense, 22nd overall by Pro Football Focus, and their coverage grade is 30th. And so they don't cover very well. I think this sets up pretty nicely for this Texans team. And again, especially when we're talking about a quarterback who has a torn ligament in his throwing thumb. So, I was shocked at this number. I thought it was going to be 3 and a hook, to be honest with you. I thought there'd be the hook on this thing. And when that you can sit here right now and get an expensive 2.5 seems like a bet that I'm going to be throwing in my account the second that we close down this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the Texans, bet now, because this will get to 3 and could even climb by the time we get to all of the money that's going to come in on Thursday with these Thanksgiving games. I mean, I look at this as your classic stock high versus stock low spot. Like Detroit just shut out by one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Carolina 27th in defense DVOA, and they lost to an expat XFL quarterback. Not great. And people are going to look at that and say, all right, well, Detroit is complete dust. I like the Texans here, especially after they beat New England. I mean, I saw that as a good sell spot on New England. And so I liked the Texans in that game, but I'm not going to take a whole lot from that one. This is definitely going to get to 3 as we get closer to Thursday after the way Detroit played. It's hard to imagine people are going to back Detroit. So this could get to 3.5. And if it does, I think I just have to blindly click Detroit there. I mean, the look ahead of this was Detroit minus 1.5. That's a huge move. If this gets to 3.5, I think the Texans' schedule was partly baked into that look ahead. I think that look ahead was probably off, but even still, I think Detroit is the play if it gets to 3.5 here on Thursday, just because of the overreaction to both sides, Detroit and Texans after a win.
Yeah, I know. I can feel you there. I just don't. I think whenever we're going at like in a matchup with 2 bad defenses, I'm going to take the better offense to just win the game and win out. And I think that the Texans are the better offense. Neither one of these teams has a defense at all. And so I trust Deshaun Watson and those playmakers that he has more than current version Matt Stafford, and then the question marks that are kind of surrounding that team as well. None of the player props are up yet, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube, but on the screen. So none of the player props are up quite yet. I was going to try to see what some of these receiving props might be for some of Watson's receivers, but when those numbers come up, if they seem too low for you, then probably bet the over on them, because I do believe they will have a lot of success through the air. I mean, as you mentioned, Brett, they just got carved up by an XFL quarterback that they didn't even really want to start. They were trying to get Teddy Bridgewater to start, and he said he couldn't go 90 minutes before the game started, and they give up 275 yards to PJ Walker. So I imagine that Deshaun Watson's going to be having a pretty good day out there. So I'll quick thing,
Matt. One, it looks like Randall Cobb won't play. He was knocked out, and Steele's also left the game, so he's questionable. So it could be the Will Fuller show for props. And then the other thing I was thinking about is that if Stafford truly does have a busted hand, then just maybe some alternative spreads. Houston minus 19.5. If we think we just get another of what we saw Sunday, because that should have been worse as well. Walker threw 2 red zone interceptions, so it could have been 30 plus
in the end zone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I guess Brandon Cooks is as well will still be out there for the Texans, so that could be. Yeah, I would probably just, if that's the case, if Cobb going to be out as well as still, then I mean, I would just load up on the over props on both of those receivers.